Well, I mentioned at the top of the show the seismic shifting of the twin tectonic political plates of climate and energy. Angus Taylor is the Federal Energy Minister who is determined to give Australia cheap and reliable energy along with a reduction in carbon emissions. Yet his plans for a new gas-fired power plant, gas is, of course, a fossil fuel, lovies, appear to have been thrown into turmoil by the climate zealots within the New South Wales Liberal government. Matt Keane. Joel Fitzgibbon is the Labor man who is directly responsible for today's seismic shift. Just before Christmas, Mr Fitzgibbon demanded the sacking of ultra-green climate cultist Mark Butler from Labor's Energy Environment portfolio. Today it happened. Joining me now are Federal Energy Minister Angus Taylor and Labor maverick Joel Fitzgibbon. Great to see you both. How are you?
Thanks for having me.
Good with you, Rowan. Good day.
Excellent.
Joel.
Joel, I'll start with you. You demanded just before Christmas that climate zealot Mark Butler get punted. Today, Butler got punted. You're a miracle worker, Joel. Props, as the kids say. Is it within your magical powers to save the Labor Party from annihilation at the next election?
Well, I'm doing my best, Rowan. That's for sure. They're certainly not the words I used last November, but I do think moving Mark Butler on is a very good start. But changing the jockey is one thing. Changing the policy direction and the narrative, which is important, is another. So it's a good first step. We will see where it takes us. But I've said many times today, we need to do a number of things. We need to recommit to the zero net emissions objective of 2050. I know you don't like it, but it's almost a universal consensus these days, and it's a long way away, and we've got plenty of time to get there by embracing new technology. We have to dispense with this idea of setting medium-term targets from opposition. That's the role of government on behalf of the whole country. And once a government sets the target for a period, then that should remain the target for the commitment period, regardless of any change in government. And we have to dispense with this idea of putting a price on carbon, whether you call it a carbon constraint, a carbon tax, whatever you might want to call it. It's a 20th century approach to a 21st century challenge, and we need to say we're not for that anymore, but rather we will get there embracing new innovation and technology.
Angus, you must be quaking in your boots now that you'll be up against Chris Bowen, the man who gave us Grocery Watch and stealing Mrs Kafupsa's franking credits. But on a serious note, if Labor is becoming more pragmatic on climate and energy, does this make your life easier or harder?
Well, it's obviously a good thing, Rowan, and I congratulate Joel on his success. I think he was the real winner in this reshuffle. He's the puppet master from what I can tell in what happened there, and it's a desperate attempt by Albanese to shore up his faltering leadership. The backflip over Butler is extraordinary because he was saying just back in November that Butler was better than sliced bread. But, the key issue here is what will Labor's policies be after the reshuffle, and Joel laid out a plan which is all about technology, not taxes, not imposing an electricity tax on Australians, bringing down the cost of energy, as is happening. We've seen a almost 10% reduction in the last 12 months. We've learnt today or yesterday, the last couple of days. So that's good news, but we need to go further, and we need Labor working with us. And as Joel knows in conversations we're happy to work with a Labor Party that has sensible policies, that wants to drive down the cost of energy, that wants to use technology, not taxation, to bring down emissions. And we're looking forward to the change and seeing whether that comes to fruition.
Joel, it strikes me that the climate crazies in the Liberal Party, like Matt Keane and Dave Sharma, are doing far more damage to the coalition than even Mark Butler ever did. Isn't the gap wide open now for Bowen to simply copy the coalition's policies, as Angus has just suggested, and thereby neutralise the entire debate?
That's a question for me, is it, Rowan?
No, sorry, Joel. Sorry, we've lost Joel's sound there. How are you, mate? Sorry, we lost your sound there, Joel. Yeah, that's okay.
I'm back.
Probably a power cut in the Hunter or something. I was just saying...
that's that 1 unit down at Liddell.
I was just asking whether, in your opinion, it's actually the crazies within the Liberal Party who are making Angus's life so hard, rather than the failure of Mark Butler to do so.
Yeah, well, they're giving him some grief, Rowan, but to his credit, at the New South Wales level, Matt Keane did come down an underground coal mine with me, so I was pretty impressed that he was at least prepared to do that and learn a few things about the coal mining industry. But certainly it's time to depoliticise the climate debate, Rowan. I mean, no, who wins out of this thing? Although I think Angus would probably argue they've had a couple of wins out of it during the last two elections. But the problem with the Labor Party is that in recent years it's become obsessed with climate change policy. You know, we used to be known as the party of the worker, now we're the party of climate change. And rather than see climate change as a political opportunity, and it's hardly been that for us, we should see it as a policy challenge. And we should be seeking to work with the government so it's not a political bun fight, because, let's be frank, we usually come off second best in those political bun fights. So, you know, if Angus and Scott Morrison are prepared to talk turkey and take the heat out of this debate, no one will be happier than me. And then we can get on with productively meeting our obligations under the Paris Agreement signed by Malcolm Turnbull, and doing so in a way that's not harmful to the economy or to local jobs.
Angus, you do have the hardest and trickiest portfolio in modern government. There's no question about that. Yet it strikes me that you're constantly being thwarted not by Labor but by the climate-obsessed wets within the Liberal Party. True or false?
No, look, I don't accept that, Rowan. We're getting on with it and the results are on the board. We've seen, as I said just a moment ago, reductions in electricity prices on average across Australia are almost 10% in the last 12 months. More than 50% on wholesale prices, which is the critical price for jobs, for the big manufacturing jobs. We're seeing new generation now being invested in, new firm generation that's there when you want it, when you flick on the switch. And those that increase in reliability that we need. So we're seeing all of this happen. We're seeing it happen in a sensible way. Now, it's true there are differences of view across states, territories and the Commonwealth.
Well, just on that, Angus, can I just ask you, is it true what Andrew Clennell reported here on Sky yesterday, that you basically said to Matt Keane, you're prepared to subsidise renewables, but you're not prepared to subsidise gas? That's insane, or words to that effect. Is that true or false?
Andrew Clennell says all sorts of things, and I'm intrigued.
True or false? It's one word. It's one or the other.
I haven't heard that one before, Rowan, so I don't know where that came from.
Okay.
But look, let's be clear here. In New South Wales, which is the real issue we've got at the moment, we've got Liddell closing in a couple of years. We've asked the private sector to step up and build firm generation, dispatchable generation. That can be gas or coal or whatever it's got to be, but it's got to be there when you flick the switch. And if they don't, we will. And we've committed to do that. And the New South Wales government is supporting that policy, and we're confident we can get it done in time. Now, the great virtue of gas in this particular case is it's fast, can be done quickly. We can get approvals from state governments, which is hugely important in this, in a timely way. It's flexible, so it can be turned on and off as it's needed, and we need more flexible generation in our grid, and it's affordable. We'll get a return to taxpayers. So we're getting on with it. There's lots of people with lots of opinions in this space, but what matters is we get that supply in, we drive down the prices, we drive up reliability, and Rowan, the runs are on the scoreboard and they will continue to come on the scoreboard. We look forward to working with Labor on these things, with these changes, if they're willing to.
Joel, I hate those left and right labels, but how much further does Labor need to shift, not personalities, but policies, in order to appeal to traditional blue-collar Labor voters?
Well, quite a bit, Rowan, but before I go there, can I just remind Angus, you don't want us agreeing all night, surely. Angus was going to keep the Liddell open, remember? He was going to keep the Liddell open. It was never realistic. And now Matt Canavan wants to build a coal-fired generator. Now, no one would be happy about that than me. Matt said, I'm not a fighter. No, I won't offer false hope. You know, if it's highly unlikely the private sector's ever going to come forward with the cash, then don't promise it. Don't raise false hope. But the Labor Party has to do a lot. I mean, many of our traditional voters not only voted against us last time, they did so with enthusiasm. And to get those people back, you need to do more than change your language by about 1 or 2 degrees. You need to go to the coal mines, go to the gas projects, go to the manufacturing plants, go to the abattoirs and shout really loudly, look, we got it wrong, we lost our way, but we respect what you do, we are proud of what you do, we need you to keep doing it, and you'll have our support, absolutely. And until Anthony Albanese and others in the other senior members of the Shadow Cabinet start getting around all those mine sites and the like, then we will continue to struggle no matter what we say from the bubble in Canberra.
Angus, Christina Keneally insisted that the 2019 election was the climate change election until, of course, Labor lost. Feel free to tell me whether or not we'll be going to the polls later this year, Angus. Here's my scoop. Come on, are we?
Well, the Prime Minister has been very, very clear on this. But let me tell you, if it was the climate change election, it didn't go very well for them, did it?
Precisely.
Because with their 45% emission reduction target, the Bill Shorten couldn't explain, that Mark Butler was behind. It's time for a change in direction, and maybe we're going to see that now. That's good news. I congratulate Joel. We want to get on with the job of driving down prices, creating jobs in manufacturing, driving up reliability, and doing sensible things to bring down emissions without imposing costs on Australians.
So, Joel, I'll go for my second scoop. So I've got one, got one from Angus there, kind of. Second scoop. Come on, when are you going to be Labor leader? And will you be Labor leader at the forthcoming election later this year, Joel Fitzgibbon? And give Labor some hope. Give working class Australia some hope, Joel.
I will answer the question, Rowan, but first of all, can I just remind Angus that my neighbour, Pat Conroy, said that climate change was a net winner for us at the last election. There you go.
He did.
Believe who you choose to believe. Look, Rowan, I have no ambition to lead the Labor Party. My ambition is for the Labor Party to win an election, just occasionally at least. We haven't proven very good at that. We've only formed a majority in the House of Representatives once in the last 27 years. I came up to my 25th anniversary in March, and I've served 6 years in government. And it's not winning for winning's sake. It's winning for the sake of the millions of Australians that, hope for us to form a government from time to time. So from the minute I wake up in the morning to the time I close my eyes at night, I've only got one objective, to make the Labor Party more competitive, to win an election, and to secure the opportunity to progress a Labor policy program.
And Angus, just very quickly, what's your response to the Nationals saying, come on, build a coal-fired power station?
Well, the immediate problem, as I said, in the Hunter Valley, which is what they're focused on, is to build a gas generator because we can do it. At the end of the day, Rowan, when you're in government, you've got to do stuff that's achievable. And this is the point Joel made. And it's achievable. We can actually do that. So let's get on with it. And it's the right technology in that case because it's fast to build, it's flexible, it's affordable, and we can get on with it. So, my job as Minister is to deliver those affordable prices. I know we need more dispatchable generation. 70% of the grid right now is coal. That's not going away anytime soon. But gas has a particularly important role to play in the coming years because of the flexibility and speed that we can get from it.
Angus Taylor, Federal Energy Minister, Joel Fitzgibbon, future Labor leader. Thank you both for coming on the show, and I look forward to next time we might discuss nuclear. Whoa, that'll be fun. Thank you both so much for coming on Inside the News tonight. Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Rowan.